Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I don't know how long it's been. Probably a couple weeks now, because I've been working on one specific part of this, and I really didn't want to make any videos until I felt like, I guess it was complete enough. It's certainly not all done and done, but yeah, let's catch you guys up to what's going on with the Shift game. So, kind of stripped away a lot of stuff. As you can notice, the world's back to being fairly barren. And the reason for that is I wanted to work on a new system. So long story short, I spent about 50 bucks on a dungeon plugin asset, and it generated really cool looking dungeons, and that was great. However, this asset hadn't really factored in the whole part of the game making process beyond the visuals. It just generated a dungeon. There was pretty much no support at all for any sort of custom triggering or things like that, which is extremely important when you make a video game. You know, you walk into a room, should the enemies spawn when you get there? How are you going to handle, I guess, which rooms are created? So all it did was just generate a bunch of rooms and hallways and click them together, and that was super cool, but it was pretty kind of worthless beyond that. And so the amount of work it was going to take me to get this all up and running, I realized was going to be pretty significant. So I did what any good coder does, and I built my own solution. So there's 50 bucks down the hole for me. Hooray. So what are we looking at today? So I called mine Prodone because I'm contemplating potentially bringing it to the store once I get all the features in and working. But let me show you guys what I've built for now. So first things first, this is a seed-based procedural generation system, so everything can be modified based off of the seed. So when I click Build Dungeon, ta-da, we get a dungeon. Right now I'm just using placeholder rooms to show this off. However, very, very quickly, what you can do is basically each of these squares can just be kind of increased substantially, and you can design whatever sort of shapes you want in there as long as they connect to the other rooms properly. You can build a huge kind of network of prefabs that are going to fill up the amount of space you decide to go with. So I'm thinking something maybe a little bigger, more like 100 by 100 or something like that, and it's going to fill a good chunk of space. But for now, just to show off this system functioning, it's a lot easier to do with a square that only takes your character a second to run across. So let's talk about what this can do. Well, for one, we're making actually a big old list. Let me show you guys in the plugins folder for Prodone here. So the mini map, or sorry, not the mini map, the basic dungeon pieces. So what I've done for now is we just have we have a shop room, which is the blue room. You're always spawning in the shop room. I'm just using the shop room as the starting room for now. You could change the name to starting room and it would kind of have the same effect. I wanted to just have you start in an area here. And then the boss room is the red room, so you're going to see that placed every single time as well. And then other than that, it's kind of a 2D or 2.5D system, although I've actually left it completely open to do height support as well. So right now my dungeon's not generating that, although probably give me another day or two of programming and I will have it actually also checking the height of connecting rooms, so you can kind of go up and down and kind of transition from area to area with that. Although first I'm going to build out my game with just kind of a flatter world, and we're going to see how that goes. So there's actually 15 different connecting options. Like this one's just up, this one is left and right, this one's up and right, for example. So you can see that they all connect together and they all know which rooms are around them. So the variables that we can do here, so as I said, it's a seed-based system. So first things first, if I just click destroying and building, it will always build me the exact same thing as long as the seed is the same. If we destroy, randomize the seed, and build dungeon again, we get a whole new dungeon layout. So I'm pretty happy with this. This should easily work for my game. It means that every single time the player can always spawn in this room. I'm not sure if I'm going to actually literally spawn him in a shop every single time, but I'm considering it. And then I may hide that somewhere else or around the floors. And yeah, I can add in as many custom rooms as I want. It's actually really, really simple and easily built into this. And yeah, so as you can see, the boss room and the shop room are both pretty, they're just connected kind of at the end or the start of the dungeon, but they can be randomly generated from there. So what other cool stuff can we do? Well, first off, we have a clump value. So if we destroy the dungeon, the clump value, even though we're on the same seed, if you change the clump value, it will change the look of the dungeon because it will get clumpier. So you can see if we maximize the clump value, it gets really, really stuck together. And if we destroy the dungeon and we lower the clump value, something around there, you can see it starts to spread out. That's actually looking pretty much like the same one. This clump value has a lot more of an effect the bigger your dungeon gets. So So you can see it's pretty clumpy here. We got like a bit of a branch off. We're at a 0.6 clump value. So it would be nice, I guess, if 0.6 was, I guess, kind of a linear change. Like 0.6 was 60% as clumpy as 1, but it's not quite that way. Basically, when it's going through the dungeon, it's deciding whether or not it will have, the next piece it places will have a certain number of neighbors, and it will try its best to do that. It can't always guarantee that. So as your clump value gets low, it's going to build dungeons that are a little less clumpy and a little more spaced out. But for the most part, I guess the biggest difference for these little tiny 20-room dungeons you're going to see is 0, where it never clumps the rooms together if at all possible, and all the way up to 1, where it will clump pretty much every single time. So that's a big, nice kind of thing that just kind of gives you a little more control over the style of dungeon you want. If you just want a bunch of rooms side by side, but you still want a unique shape, no problem, this will work. And then if you want kind of some more corridors or something kind of a little more stretched out, you can build something with a little less clump value, but this means you're going to get a lot of dead ends for the player running around. So that's our clump value. I'm just going to leave that low because I think it looks more interesting with these low dungeon sizes. And then another thing you can do is you can change the room preset size. So basically any preset you want to use. As I said, let's say we'll set mine to 100, 100. And then if we build the dungeon, you can see that it's now spaced the entire dungeon. It's the same layout, but it's spaced out a little bit wider so that these rooms could be much, much bigger. Although I'm just going to leave it at 1111 for this video because I want you guys to be able to see exactly what it's doing. It's a lot easier to visualize this way. The other thing we can do is we can change the grid size, so how many rooms, I guess, are possible to fit. And you can see right now we're still building the same dungeon. However, increasing that grid size is going to be important because if we have, let's say, 100 rooms and we build dungeon, it starts to get a lot more complex really fast, and that's kind of how big or spaced out we're going to have the option. If we lower the grid size and up the rooms, it's going to end up getting clumpier because it doesn't have enough space to kind of stretch itself out. The other thing I'm pretty proud of, as you can see, is it's building fairly quickly. It's doing all this math and stuff for all these room checks fairly efficiently. We'll randomize it and throw some more dungeons in there. So yeah, you can see like no matter what seed or whatever gets fed in, it goes pretty well. So yeah, this dungeon generator is looking really, really good. And then I'm just going to bring this down to about, I guess, a 15-room dungeon for now because I want to show you guys off another piece of this that I built. So I also connected this to a minimap script. So minimap script is very similar, has a ton of different variables that can go into it. But as you run around on this thing, so we'll just click play, and you guys can watch down here in the top right, we have our minimap. So the way I've got it building right now is my initialized room color, which you can set to anything, but I've set it to invisible. So the rooms are going to be completely invisible on the minimap until you visit them. And then you can see, I guess I'll maximize this just so you can see this for a second here, or it won't, there we go. You can see there's just a little nub, so you can see that this has a connector going this way, so this minimap knows that as well. As soon as we walk into this one, we have 4 connectors. You can see it's got 4 connectors on it. And yeah, it's going to recenter based off of your current location, based off of which room you're in. And you can see that will update the second that we cross that barrier into the next room. So the minimap will always update wherever you go. So as these prefabs get a lot bigger, this kind of thing is going to get a lot more important because right now I can see, I can probably see more rooms in the game world than I can on the minimap. But if these were huge and I can only see 1 room at a time, this will give me a bit of an idea of where I went. Oh yeah, I started like, 2 rooms left and 1 room down. And it's a little bit weird because I've got my game kind of on a bit of a camera angle, but I'm not sure exactly how I want to solve that yet. But yeah, it will slowly fill out the minimap as you explore the map, and you can see here, oh, there's a connector over here, so there's another room option and something I can go to. There's a few more features I thought about to kind of flesh out for the minimap as well, but I'm pretty happy with how this is looking. Another cool thing is the teleport system is still in, so if you walk off the world, boop, it'll teleport you. And as you can see, even as I walked off the world, it knows, oh, I'm not in a room. So you can see that active room gets deselected as well. So another thing I'll try to show off real quick here is, yeah, so the other thing that I thought is, maybe games may want to use this that have like a lot of rooms. So let's say that we have 10 cells. So right now the mini-map is only 5 by 5 for my game because that's, I guess, the easiest to see and the easiest to show off. However, and all these things too are customized as well. So you can, like, the image that you're using can totally change and things. Oh, whoops. So one thing is you can't just change these values. You do need to regenerate the dungeon with the updated values. So now that I've done 10 by 10, I click play, and look, we have this really small mini map. It's got a little jitteriness going on with some different sizes. I'm not 100% sure why that is yet, but as I said, this is pretty new. And you can see now we have a lot more cells on the mini map. So as we move around, we can basically see the whole map. So if I wanted to, this is another really easy way to kind of display the entire minimap simultaneously, and it's still centering and updating your position based off of wherever you go. And all of these items are customizable, what the active room color is, what the visited room color is, how many cells, which object we're tracking. For some reason, if your game wasn't tracking the player, you can obviously switch that up. This position is just going to report your position live, so it will tell you where you are on the grid, and then this grid is also updated based off of the way that this grid gets built. So as you update this grid size, this grid will kind of keep up with you. Yeah, unfortunately, I had to make a couple of different lists. I was trying to do this more efficiently, but I did not realize how poor or difficult it is to use anything multi-dimensional for serialization. So yeah, I had to kind of make this, I guess, a little bit simpler to work with. I'm gonna go back to 5.5 since that's what I'm gonna be using for, I think, my game, at least for the time being. And yeah, so I built out this cool little dungeon generation system. So it's going to be a little bit before I really get these prefabs built, because now what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to build these big old rooms again, just like I've done over and over now, except I'm going to have to build a whole bunch of them. So there's actually another piece of this coming together that a friend of mine is working on that I can't show off just yet, but basically it's a fancier system of doing this page, where what you do is you can increase the amount of prefabs for each of these areas. So right now, every single time you build an all room, we build this all prefab. However, what I've started working on is a way to, let's say we increase this element list, and in the art area we do proton worlds, and let's say our first desert world, we go to prefabs, we go to all, and we can actually start populating this list. So if we put an all room 1 in here, well, now the odds when we have this all connection piece, it's got a 50-50 chance of choosing between these two things, and we're gonna add in a weighting to this as well. We destroy the dungeon, build the dungeon, oh my god, everything looks broken, but that's actually correct. I think the all piece is like 100 by 100 or something like that. Let's try that again, see if that looks a little better. Still not quite, maybe it's 200 by 200. So I made this really big piece to start giving you an idea of how the rooms will connect together. So you'll see that we only have this one all piece right here, but if we had two of these together, they would actually come and seam right at these lines. So this gives you a bit of an idea of how a little bit more of a visceral room can be built out. And then that's how this becomes procedural, because it has this whole list of potential prefabs to pick from. So it'll take a while to populate this list and kind of create the entire world. But once this is created, then you can create a themed prefab room container for every single section of the game, and you can have all these different worlds building out, and it's going to look really cool and work really, really easily. So if you bring this back down to 1, we're going to get rid of that giant prefab. You kind of bring this room preset size back down to 11 because that's just a little bit bigger. We destroy, rebuild, and we're back to our original dungeon. So you can see just how cleanly and everything this is working. I'm really happy with it. It took me a little bit to build because it's a little bit complicated to get all these pieces kind of interlinking and working together and doing all the math, and I learned a lot because I hadn't worked with serialization in this exact way before, so that was really cool, and now I understand that a lot better, and that was a huge time sink for me to get a lot of these pieces going. And then at the same time, I'm simultaneously working with a friend of mine who's building basically a editor plugin that's going to allow you to create better prefab like groups and lists and things like that. So he's been working on that, which I need to make sure will also plug into this, so we've kind of got all those pieces of this project going together. And yeah, in the long run, what did we do? We lost a bunch of work. However, now that I have this is a solution for the full duration of the project. This will easily do everything that I want it to do, and the variables and stuff that I can work with now give me a lot of access to, say, change different floor layouts. I can just modify that clump value on every floor, and then I generate the dungeon in game, and because it generates so quickly, your load times are going to be like nothing unless you're playing on a really garbage computer. So yeah, this is all looking really, really nice, and I'm really happy with it. So a lot of these other systems that are built out, like the currency system and the purchase system and all this kind of stuff, now we just need to make some cooler prefabs, and yeah, we're set up to go, and there's like a game just popping out of this bad boy. So next thing for me, I'm going to make a huge change to the game. Norbert is going to change from a ranged champion to a melee champion. The reason for that is right now the game is not that fun, and that's my biggest problem with things, and I've been kind of humming and hawing for about a month on what to do about this. So the issue right now is the way that the control scheme works. Actually, I'm going to bring up a controller and show you guys. So your movement is set to this. This joystick does nothing, and your attack is set to A. Now what you can do to lock your look direction is you can use your triggers. Right trigger roots you entirely, so if I spin the joystick while I'm rooted, it'll just spin me in place. The left trigger locks your look direction. So if you're looking up and then you hold left trigger and you keep on running, he'll keep looking up while he kind of strafes to the side or runs backwards or something like that. So that's cool, and I really like that system. And I wanted to see how that could be implemented into a ranged game. And I've been talking to people and kind of getting feedback and letting them try it. And they kind of universally agree it's clunky, and I'm 100% on board. I think that's totally the reason I keep trying to test this so early, because I keep feeling like it's clunky and it's missing something. So basically, the way I see it, there's two solutions to this. One, we leave it, or I guess three solutions. One, we leave it clunky, worst solution ever. Two, we switch to a twin stick shooter system where you can kind of aim with one stick while you shoot with the other. The problem with that becomes mouse and keyboard, where your mouse and keyboard can also do a twin stick system, and there's a lot of games that have done that, but I sort of feel like with twin stick that ruins some of what I was going for with the enemy design, in the sense that it's like a little bit decision based. It's not just reactionary based. So when you attack, you're kind of stuck in position, and that leaves you vulnerable. And I like that concept to this game. And I feel like a lot of the other dungeon crawlers are all just about kind of like running and like praying and spraying as you go, and that they're great games for that. I just feel like the genre is a little bit overdone, so I wanted to try something a little bit different. So that's my backup plan. If this new idea and the new system is not working, or I don't think it's fun, that's my final attempt. It's the thing I've been trying to avoid from the beginning, but I know it works because it's a proven system done time and time again. And it's fun, so I'm not going to be all that kind of upset if that's the end result of this. What I'm going to try first is a melee system. So the locking of the rotation and things like that works really well with melee, because melee is very intuitive. Melee goes in front of you and it's like, and then you feel it. Problem with ranged is in a two-dimensional world, I think it could work. In a three-dimensional world, it's really hard to tell where shots are going. It's actually kind of hard for your eye to follow that. So what I've been doing is I put a lot of work into like the shadow system, into the shot and stuff, and that made it a lot better. And everyone's been able to play, but everyone has pretty much universally gone, yeah, man, this feels kind of clunky. And they don't intuitively start locking their position. It's something I've gotten used to playing this so much, and it doesn't feel that bad once you put a lot of time into it. But we need a game that people can pick up and play and have more fun with. And I don't really want to have to like hand them an instruction manual or personally hover over their shoulder and teach them the control scheme. I want it to feel more fluid and natural, and that's a big important thing for me. So I'm going to try this new system. It's not going to change that much because I'm still going to give him some range on his melee attacks, but I think it's really going to change the style and feel of the game, and I'm going to make the attacks come out a lot punchier and faster. So we'll see if that starts to feel better, and then we can get back to enemy design, that kind of stuff. And yeah, a lot of world design to build all these prefabs now for these rooms. But yeah, it's coming along. There's new systems in place. Everything is looking really good. And I have a moving date, so I will be leaving Japan as of March, which I'm off for another adventure. I'm going to be going to Ireland, but it means that my time to work on this may be a little bit distracted for a slight little while there. So yeah, I'm going to try to get as many base systems in and do all the stuff that I'm good at already, and then I'm going to need a lot more time to practice art and things like that. I've really, I spent, I think, like 6 hours the other day drawing hair and things like that. I've learned so much on the art front, but every once in a while I open up some actual professional artist work and I'm just like, yeah, I'm not at that level yet. So a Norbert redesign is in the works. It will be coming eventually, but for now all I've done is just created some rough kind of blocking animations to get this new combat system in. So that's what I'm going to work on for the rest of my night. Hope you guys are enjoying the update. I'm sorry they've become so infrequent, but I promise it's because I'm building these huge systems. If I showed you every day as the procedural generator was broken, I know these videos, well, frankly, they're getting like 8 or 9 views. So I didn't want to keep bombarding the 8 or 9 of you with these really kind of dull updates, so I give you a little more kind of cool chunks to get your eyes onto. So yeah, that's the next step. That's what's going on. That's the process in my brain and my mind. And we've got a few new people kind of joining on the project just as kind of a learning experience. So whether or not they generate any sort of usable work is, well, frankly, unlikely. But at least everybody's going to get a chance to kind of use this game as a good way to kind of teach themselves some stuff. So I'm trying to help some folks out. I feel like one of the biggest problems in this industry is that everybody wants senior programmers and senior developers and senior artists, because senior people can produce work at 10 times the rate of junior people. But if there's nobody ever trying to help teach junior people, then how do we ever get to senior level? Really, it's becoming incredibly difficult in this world to properly find jobs, and it's kind of an industry, and that's why I think a lot of studios are struggling, because there's really no support for the lower tier anymore. It's always just, we want money and we want to hire people who will instantly give us money, and people don't invest into employees anymore. So I don't have the large studio means, but I can still kind of try to get back to the community a bit. So we got some cool people working on some stuff to try to add a little bit, if they can, to the project. But yeah, so far it's still just primarily me plugging away here. So I'll catch you guys next time. I hope you're all having wonderful lives, and I will see you soon. Thank you so much for watching.